While retail investors have spent the last few months obsessing over daily price charts and meme coin volatility, one of the most powerful financial institutions on the planet has been quietly executing a total takeover of Web3 infrastructure. According to official press releases that the mainstream media completely misinterpreted, Mastercard has just secured partnerships with over 85 different crypto companies. We're talking about a highly coordinated infrastructure grab spanning base layer blockchains, centralized exchanges, stablecoin issuers, and custody providers. To the casual observer, it looks like a massive win for global adoption. But if you read the fine print of these agreements, they are not building a decentralized utopia. They are building a completely permissioned, closed-loop surveillance net. My name is Lewis, and you're watching The Coin Bureau. Now, let's begin by looking at the sheer scale of the infrastructure grab that Mastercard has just executed. On March 11, 2026, Mastercard officially launched what it calls its Crypto Partner Program. The mainstream financial press covered this as just another corporate ecosystem announcement, but the reality is far more aggressive. According to the official data, Mastercard has successfully integrated itself into every single layer of the crypto stack. They have locked down base layer blockchains like Solana, Polygon, Aptos, Avalanche, and Tron. They have secured exchange partnerships with Binance, Bybit, OKX, Kraken, and Crypto.com. They have embedded themselves with stablecoin issuers like Circle and Paxos, and custody providers like Fireblocks and Anchorage Digital. This is not a pilot program, and it is not a trial run. This is a $444 billion traditional finance giant planting its flag directly in the center of the decentralized economy. And they are doing this from a position of absolute financial strength. In the 2025 fiscal year, Mastercard posted $32.8 billion in total revenue, and their revenue growth actually accelerated throughout the year, jumping from 14.2% in the first quarter to 17.6% in the fourth quarter. They're operating with world-class net margins of 45.6% and operating margins of 59.2%. So they don't need to pivot to crypto to save their legacy business. They're pivoting to crypto because the on-chain economy is simply too large to ignore. Bitcoin's market cap sits at roughly $1.43 trillion, which is more than 3 times the size of Mastercard's entire business. Meanwhile, annual stablecoin transfer volumes topped $27.6 trillion in 2025. To put that number into perspective, that exceeds the combined transfer volumes from both Visa and Mastercard's traditional networks. The thing that was supposed to disrupt them is now officially bigger than them. Stablecoin-linked card spending reached $4.5 billion in 2025, a staggering 673% increase from the prior year. Business-to-business stablecoin payments now account for approximately $226 billion annually. And those are not incremental gains. So, Mastercard had decided to co-opt the disruption. They're taking the infrastructure of a 200-country network and plugging it directly into Web3. Now, to understand how they're actually achieving this, you have to look at the underlying technical plumbing. Mastercard's crypto strategy relies heavily on a piece of architecture called the Multi-Token Network, or MTN. The mainstream narrative will tell you that Mastercard is embracing public blockchains, but that is really only half the truth. The MTN is not a public blockchain. It's a private, permissioned blockchain designed to act as a centralized trust engine. It allows developers to build automated payment flows and smart contracts without ever touching a truly decentralized network. And traditional banking giants absolutely love it. JP Morgan Chase and Standard Chartered are already connected to the MTN for institutional settlements. They are using tokenized bank deposits and regulated stablecoins to bypass the volatility of public chains. Mastercard is also deeply involved in the global rollout of central bank digital currencies. They have run sandbox pilots with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority to simulate the life cycle of an EHKD. They have worked with the Reserve Bank of Australia to test how a retail CBDC could settle Web3 transactions. But in the United States, the strategy had to pivot. Following an executive order by President Trump prohibiting the creation of retail US digital dollars, Mastercard shifted its entire American focus towards regulated stablecoins. They have integrated USDG via Paxos, PYUSD via PayPal, and FIUSD via Fiserv. They even partnered with SoFi to enable SoFi USD, the first stablecoin issued by a US nationally chartered bank to settle directly on the Mastercard network. But the real Trojan horse for retail users is a product called Mastercard Crypto Credential. Here's how it works. Historically, crypto transfers have relied on long, cryptic wallet addresses. Mastercard is replacing those addresses with human-readable aliases, similar to a traditional email address. On the surface, this sounds like a fantastic user experience upgrade, but there's more to it than meets the eye. Unlike a standard crypto transfer, Mastercard Crypto Credential actively verifies that both the sender and the recipient are compliant participants before a transaction is even initiated. It acts as a pre-transaction verification gate. If you want to use this system, you cannot remain anonymous. Your on-chain identity is tied to your real-world identity, and the transaction is screened against the Financial Action Task Force's travel rule. By performing these checks up front, Mastercard ensures that no digital assets move across its network without centralized approval. The contract rejects you automatically before a single token moves. And this brings us to the compliance dragnet that powers this entire system. Because Mastercard isn't adopting decentralized crypto, but instead forcing crypto to adopt traditional banking compliance. If you look closely at that list of 85 partners, you'll find the world's most powerful blockchain analytics and surveillance firms. Chainalysis, Elliptic, and TRM Labs are all officially part of the Mastercard ecosystem. These are the crypto detectives of the state. TRM Labs alone maintains a database of over 2.4 billion labeled addresses and recently reached a $1 billion unicorn valuation. They even formed a specialized task force with Tether that has frozen more than $300 million in tainted assets. Elliptic recently became the first blockchain analytics firm to receive backing from 4 globally systemically important banks, including HSBC and JP Morgan. And Chainalysis just integrated its KYT risk intelligence directly with Chainlink's smart contracts. This means Chainalysis risk scores are no longer just advisory. They can be programmatically enforced at the smart contract level, blocking transactions before they execute. But Mastercard doesn't just partner with compliance providers, they actually own one. Back in October 2021, Mastercard quietly acquired CipherTrace, a leading cryptocurrency intelligence company. They have since integrated CipherTrace's technology into a platform called CryptoSecure. Now, let's be precise about what is actually happening here. When a user initiates a crypto to fiat conversion through a partnered exchange like Binance or OKX, the exchange runs its own wallet screening using TRM Labs or Chainalysis. Then, the CryptoSecure layer activates. Mastercard's proprietary AI algorithm generates a color-coded risk rating for that transaction. Red for high risk, green for low risk. If an algorithm flags your wallet as suspicious, perhaps because you indirectly received funds from a sanctioned entity 3 hops away, well, your transaction is blocked and you get a red flag. There is no explanation, no appeals process, and no public recourse. And because all 85 partners in this network are using the exact same underlying analytics database, well, a flagged wallet doesn't just fall on Mastercard's network. It gets blacklisted across the entire interconnected ecosystem. Every cross-border transfer, every B2B payment, and every global settlement running these crypto rails is subject to this automated surveillance layer. And speaking on staying ahead of massive institutional power plays before they hit the mainstream headlines, well, this is exactly why you need the Coin Bureau weekly newsletter. That is where we share the latest breaking news and give you the most important market updates. Whether it's a hidden clause in a newly amended SEC prospectus or a sudden shift in on-chain validator dominance, our members see it first. So sign up today using the link down below or by scanning the QR code on the screen. Now back to the compliance net. Because you might be wondering why major crypto exchanges and stablecoin issuers are agreeing to this level of centralized control. Well, the answer is simple. They don't have a choice. The regulatory environment doesn't just permit the strategy, it legally mandates it. In July of 2025, the US government passed the Genius Act, the first comprehensive federal legislation on stablecoins. This law explicitly treats stablecoin issuers as financial institutions under the Bank Secretary Act. But it gets worse. The Genius Act includes a freeze and burn provision. It legally requires that every regulated payment stablecoin must possess the technical capability to be frozen or destroyed by government order. Meanwhile, over in Europe, the MiCA framework is enforcing a zero-threshold travel rule. Crypto asset service providers must collect and verify the identity of the sender and recipient for every single crypto transfer, regardless of the amount. If you try to move more than 1,000 euros to a self-custody wallet, the exchange has to verify that you actually own that wallet. This is what regulatory harmonization looks like in practice, and it creates an impenetrable moat for legacy incumbents. According to industry estimates, small to mid-sized crypto firms saw their compliance costs surge by 28% in 2025, reaching an average of $620,000 annually. Small, independent protocols simply cannot afford to play in this arena. But a $440 billion behemoth like Mastercard certainly can. And they're doing this because they are locked in a desperate arms race with the biggest rival. Visa currently boasts a $592 billion market cap, creating a nearly $148 billion gap that Mastercard is trying desperately to close. Visa currently handles over 90% of on-chain crypto card volume alone. They have already hit an annualized stablecoin settlement run rate of $3.5 billion. Visa is even building its own universal payment channel, an interoperability hub designed to connect vetted private stablecoin networks. The critical word here is vetted. Visa is building the exact same permissioned overlay as Mastercard, just with different branding. And the wider fintech ecosystem is following suit. Stripe recently acquired stablecoin infrastructure firm Bridge for $1.1 billion. PayPal's PYUSD stablecoin has swelled past a $4.1 billion market cap, fueled by a massive $1 billion incentive program. This is an absolute arms race to become the default toll booth for the new financial internet. To understand why this is so dangerous for the ethos of crypto, you have to look at the tokenization standards being deployed across these networks. We've discussed how standards like ERC 3643 require mandatory KYC and AML verification before a token can move. The standard uses an identity registry known as on-chain ID to map every on-chain address to a real-world identity. Mastercard's network operates on the same exact premise. They use renting permissionless infrastructure to run a completely permissioned product. When you use a Mastercard-backed crypto card or settlement layer, you do not control your keys and you do not control your assets. You are simply using a slightly faster, blockchain-branded version of the legacy fiat banking system. And the institutional market is actively rejecting true decentralization. Just look at the decentralized financial sector. Aave Arc is a permissioned lending protocol specifically designed for regulated institutions. Despite the massive hype around institutional DeFi, Aave Arc currently holds a negligible $50,000 in total value locked. Institutions don't want decentralized finance. They want traditional finance efficiency running on crypto rails. And Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin has been sounding the alarm about this exact trend. In late 2025, Vitalik explicitly warned that privacy is an important guarantee of decentralization. He stated that whoever owns the information owns the power. His exact warning was that when power can exert pressure by tracking on-chain data, the permissionless nature of blockchain becomes an empty promise. He has urged the Ethereum community to remain vigilant against centralization creep, warning against institutional overreach. Because the payment layer is permissioned, the underlying permissionless network becomes entirely irrelevant for everyday transactions. And this brings us to the ultimate endgame of Mastercard's strategy. By embedding themselves into the core infrastructure of major exchanges and custody providers, they're creating a walled garden. Retail users will soon be forced to choose between the frictionless, highly regulated Mastercard ecosystem or the increasingly isolated world of true DeFi. And history tells us that convenience wins almost every single time. Over 61% of crypto users in recent surveys already say they prefer platforms with robust compliance measures. As governments push for tighter regulations, this corporate-controlled network will become the default, legally compliant way to interact with digital assets. And this is a tragic departure from the original vision of this space. Back in October 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto published the Bitcoin white paper with a very clear opening sentence. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without the burdens of going through a financial institution. The entire system was designed to remove the trusted third party. Decades later, in the Cypherpunk Manifesto, Eric Hughes warned that we cannot expect governments, corporations, or other large, faceless organizations to grant us privacy. He wrote that privacy is the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world. But under the Mastercard model, you must always reveal yourself. The cypherpunk dream of true peer-to-peer electronic cash is being replaced by corporate rent-seeking. Now, there is a glimmer of hope in the form of technological resistance. In March 2025, the economic sanctions against Tornado Cash were officially lifted by the US government. Federal Appeals Court ruled that immutable smart contracts do not qualify as property, meaning that the government cannot sanction decentralized code. Despite years of regulatory pressure, Tornado Cash still processed roughly $2.5 billion worth of transactions in 2025, and zero-knowledge proofs are offering a potential third way. Protocols like Railgun, which saw $1.4 billion in net inflows last year, are developing proof of innocence models. These allow users to cryptographically prove that they are not on a sanctions list without actually revealing their personal data. But the question is whether corporate giants like Mastercard will ever integrate these privacy-preserving tools. Given their massive investments in surveillance infrastructure like CipherTrace, well, that seems highly unlikely. So, on one hand, Mastercard's massive integration with 85 plus crypto companies is undeniably bullish for short-term price action and global liquidity. It brings the infrastructure of a 200-country network directly into Web3, validating stablecoins as a permanent fixture of global commerce. It offers a lifeline to the 1.4 billion people worldwide who are currently excluded from the traditional financial system. But the long-term cost is the absolute sacrifice of financial privacy and decentralization. Mastercard is not building a bridge to the crypto world. They are building a compliance dragnet designed to absorb digital assets into the traditional banking surveillance state. The data does not lie. The next phase of global payments is being built on crypto rails, but it will be entirely controlled by Wall Street. The question isn't whether institutions will co-opt blockchain technology. The question is whether any truly permissionless alternatives will be allowed to survive alongside them. But what do you think? Is Mastercard's takeover a necessary evil for mass adoption, or does it destroy the fundamental purpose of cryptocurrency? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to understand how the multi-trillion-dollar tokenization trend is reshaping Wall Street, well, you could check out our video on that right over here. And if you want to dive deeper into how zero-knowledge proofs could save financial privacy, well, you could check out our video on that right over here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. This is Lewis, signing off.